Good morning, everyone. Jeremy Knauff here with another episode of the Public Relations Declassified live stream. And today we're going to talk about how to get journalists' attention without being creepy or annoying. Now, this is something that's incredibly important, both because it increases the chances that a journalist is going to open and read your pitch, which means you have a greater chance of getting featured in the media. But it's also important because most people approach this the wrong way. So let's talk a little bit about what are some of the wrong ways to do this so that you can look out for and avoid that. The first is not to spam them, right? Send them your pitches, no question there. Don't go overboard. Don't send the same pitch a bunch of times. Don't reply to your initial pitch saying bump, just following up if you didn't see this, things like that. Generally, when I pitch a journalist, I am pitching them once. In some cases, if it's a breaking news type of story, I may bump it. But other than that, one email, and if they don't reply back to you, then generally that means the story is not a fit right now for whatever reason. It could just be that they're buried. They don't have time for any news stories. It could be that it doesn't fit the news cycle. It could be any number of things. But if they don't respond to you, it doesn't mean that they just need a reminder. Now, you can pitch repeatedly but take a different angle each time. That's always a good way to do it. But I generally don't like to pitch a single journalist more than once a week, regardless of what it is, with some extenuating circumstances being the case, right? If you had pitched them about a particular piece of legislation, like we've got a client right now going through something like this, where we had pitched them a story which did end up turning into a TV segment, and we wanted to do a follow-up piece. Well, it was just leaked last night that the White House is talking about some changes to the legislation that they're going to be making that will become public shortly. So that's an angle to where I can reach back out on the same topic in a way that actually makes sense, right? Because there's new information here. But staying on their radar from pitching consistently is a good approach, just so long as you don't spam them, which is unfortunately what most people do. But there is another way that you can stay on their radar without the risk of spamming them, without the risk of sending too many different emails, and that is to engage with them on social media. Now, all journalists are on social media in some capacity. I find that X is where they tend to be most active. If you go to like their Facebook page is different than a profile. If you go to their Facebook page, they may have some activity there, but in some cases, they may not be the one who is posting and engaging in the comments and reading anything there. So I have found that X tends to be the most effective, but most journalists have a platform on X as well as other places. So just look for the journalists who cover the stories that you want to be in and figure out where they are on social media. It might be LinkedIn, it might be Facebook, hell, it might even be YouTube. But whatever it is, you want to find where they are active and start engaging with them there. And also engage with the people that they are engaging with. So one of the things I like to do is go to their posts when they're posting an article, when they're just posting a random post about whatever. If there's a way that you can engage that's relevant, then they're going to see your name pop up more and more often, which means when you do pitch them, they're a lot more likely to recognize you and then open and read that pitch. Now, the other reason that you want to engage with the people that they engage with is those are people that they already know, like, and trust. So if you are engaging with the people they engage with and they see those people engaging back with you, that's a good trust sign, right? It's social proof. And it makes them pay a little bit more attention to you. And if you're creative and you're good with, networking, connecting people, things like that, then you could even leverage those relationships to get direct intros to some of those journalists. That's something that I've done in the past. It's been very effective. But you have to be careful how you approach that, right? You don't want it to come off like you're just sucking up to them to get that introduction, because that's a good way to poison the well, so to speak. Now, when you're engaging, there's a few things you have to do. First is that you have to be consistent, right? You have to be commenting on their stuff fairly regularly. And by fairly regularly, I mean at least a few times a week. so that they will see your name pop up. Now, the more prominent a particular journalist is, the more that you're going to have to do to get their attention, because they're going to have a much larger audience engaging on their content. So the bigger they are, the more effort it's going to take. So you have to show up consistently at a level that is going to get their attention. More important than that is everything you do has to be valuable. So what's valuable to a journalist? Well, eyeballs for one, but not in a creepy Silence of the Lambs kind of way. A journalist measures success by the number of people that their content reaches. So the more people that read their articles, or the more people that watch their TV news segments, things like that. So the more visibility that you can help create for them, the more valuable you will be seen in their eyes. So if you have a large audience through whatever channel, right? It might be social media, it might be email, it might even be a website that you own. If you can use that to drive more eyeballs to their content, that's going to make you look infinitely more valuable to them. And then as far as engaging in the comments, what I have found is that a lot of people they'll post basically nonsense, right? So they'll post something like, oh, great article, or, something like that, right? It's very simple. It's very surface level. It doesn't really provide any value or any insight. So what you want to do instead is note something useful from the article, right? If you could talk about how a particular piece of information in that article or in that TV segment was especially valuable, and then also if you can go and share that with your audience, that's powerful for them. And I also like to use comments or replies, whatever you want to call it, that will spark conversation, right? Questions are a good way to do this because it gets other people engaged. They want to come up and show that they're smart, that they know what they're talking about. So they're going to come up and share their insight. And then you can ask further, deeper probing questions. And that creates more engagement for that journalist on that particular thread. And if they can see that you're the one fostering that, you're the one that's making it happen, they're going to take note of that. And it's going to improve your chances of getting featured. Now, obviously, we want to like these posts. That's marginally valuable. Comments are next, and shares, provided you have a large audience, are even more important. So if you can share their content, and of course, tag them when you do this, but share it with some kind of insight. Maybe ask a question of your audience about that topic. Maybe share something valuable that you got out of the article. Let people know why they need to pay attention to it, what they need to do about the information that's in there, things like that. So now you're driving more engagement, not only on their stuff, but also on your stuff using your audience. And this is a really powerful way to get their attention so that when you do pitch them, they're far more likely to open and read that email. Now, it doesn't guarantee that you're going to get featured, but it does raise your awareness with them, which makes it easier, right? You still have to fit into, the topics that they cover. You have to fit into what their editorial calendar looks like, right? Certain things that they'll talk about at certain times. Other times they won't touch certain topics. And then also the news cycle plays a role as well. If there's something breaking that pertains to whatever it is you do, well, I promise you that big breaking news is going to get far more attention than whatever it is that you're pitching, unless it's directly connected to that. So there's no silver bullet here. It's not magically just going to guarantee that you get featured all the time, but it does create a lot of leverage to help make that happen. So there's a couple of things you can do to make this easier for you. One is to turn on alerts for that particular journalist, that reporter, that anchor, whoever it is. Turn on alerts. This is especially true in X. It's especially true in YouTube. I don't remember what the functionality is in Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. I think you're just always going to get those notifications, if I remember correctly. But what this will do is it will ensure that you're going to see alerts every time they publish something. And that's critical because it helps you to get over to their content and be one of the first people to engage. And if you're consistently one of the first people to do that, and you're doing it from a position of value, that's going to elevate you tremendously. Something else you can do is set up news alerts, Google News alerts. Now, This is a free service from Google. If you have a Gmail account, you can definitely set this up. And basically what's happening at that point is anytime that Google comes across a piece of content that matches a particular keyword phrase, and in this case, you might put in the journalist's name or the journalist plus the media outlet or something like that, so that every time they publish something and Google finds it, you immediately get an email. Now, when you set this up, you want to set the alerts up so that they pop in real time, right? You can set it up to where it will pop in at certain intervals. I like to set it up to where they pop in instantly. That way, as soon as something goes live somewhere, I can instantly go click that link and see that piece of content. And then that gives me an opportunity to engage on these journalists' content. And again, like I said, if you're consistently doing that, you're one of the first people, you're bringing tremendous value, you're driving more engagement and eyeballs to their content, that's a win for you all day long because it makes you more valuable to them. Now, something else you can do is sign up for their newsletter. So a lot of journalists have a newsletter of some sort. It might be on Substack, it might be through some other third-party platform, whatever it may be. Most have some kind of newsletter where they are sharing their content that they're publishing everywhere, as well as not just the media outlet, but also other, maybe they have their own website, maybe they have their own news entity of some sort, right? Social media profiles for that. If you subscribe to their newsletter, you're going to be one of the first people that sees a lot of that content. And also this gives you a chance to find some of the other content that may not show up in your feed. So this is a great way to really stand out and get their attention. And then another thing you can do is you can create a lot of content. And I don't mean just spin up some AI bullshit. That's a mistake I see a lot of people make. You want to create useful, original content that provides real value. So the content that you're creating should demonstrate your expertise. It also increases your exposure and it builds social proof. So you might go in and take a complex topic related to your industry and break that down in a way that other people understand. That's useful for a journalist because they can see that you're an expert and you're qualified to opine on this topic. And they may just come across it in the feed, or they may see it as a result of you commented something on one of their posts and they went over and looked at your profile, went through some of your content. This is a great way to demonstrate the depth of your expertise, and it shows them that you're a qualified expert for them to cite in anything they happen to be covering on that topic. So you want to go deep, you want to be specific. The way I always look at content is people should be able to take that piece of content, consume it, learn whatever they learn from it, and then go benefit from it in some way, even if they never work with you as a client, right? Even if they never buy anything from you. And the idea here is you are showing them exactly what they need to know, right? You're not just saying, hey, here's the problem, and then I've got this super secret formula that I handle this with. Just sign up for my newsletter. Like, we don't want to do that. We want everything to be in that piece of content. And don't, try to make this mammoth piece of content that answers everything about your industry in one piece. That's crazy. But take little elements of your industry, right? Maybe there's particular regulations that are being changed. Maybe there's certain economic trends in your industry. Maybe there's emerging technology, whatever it may be. You take a small facet of that thing and you break it down in a way that everyone can clearly understand it, understand how it impacts them, and understand exactly what to do as a result of that situation. And that is a great way to demonstrate your expertise, right? But far too often, I see people make the mistake of, they'll talk about their proprietary techniques and this, that, and the other, that you have to actually become a customer or a client of theirs in order to get the answer. That's a no-go. They have to be able to implement something from that piece of content immediately, regardless of whether they contact you or buy anything from you, okay? But then by consistently posting this type of content, you're going to start getting engagement. You're going to get comments. You're going to get likes. You're going to get shares. And that demonstrates social proof. It shows that people are not only consuming your content, but they're engaging with it, which means it's valuable. They find something useful in it. That tells people that what you're creating based on your expertise is useful to a large audience. That's a huge sign for journalists that you are a credible expert. It also starts training the algorithm to show your content to more people. So by consistently posting content, and then especially as people start engaging with it, the algorithm starts to say, hey, this is great content. People like it. They find it useful. Let's start showing it to more people. And then that means more reach. And it creates this snowball effect where now, because more people see it, more people engage on it, and then it shows it to even more people. So the more that you do this, and the key is to do it consistently. Don't go in waves or flurries, right? You want to be doing some content every single week, right? Several pieces at a minimum in most cases. The more often that you do that, the more your reach will expand, the more your engagement will grow, and the more credible that you'll look because of the social proof that comes from that. Now, there is a caveat, of course. If you're saying something ridiculous and everyone's in the comments saying you're an idiot and what you're saying is wrong, obviously that does not help you. So don't make, outrageous claims. Don't make controversial statements just for the sake of controversy, because what you're going to do there is just attract the haters, and that's actually going to damage your social proof. So we want to be careful that we are creating useful content that most people are going to like, that most people are going to find useful. We want to get that in front of as many people as possible. You couple that with going to these journalists' social media profiles and engaging consistently while you continue to pitch them via email. And I promise you, you are going to get on their radar. They're going to start to recognize you, because this is something that most people don't do. Most people will just spin up a list of journalists. They'll blind pitch everybody, and they don't tailor their pitches to each journalist. And the only time that journalist sees anything from them is when they're getting one of these emails, which often the emails are not really effective pitches to begin with. So they don't get the results that they're looking for. But if you put all of these things that we talked about here into practice and you execute consistently on that, they're going to recognize you, and they're going to be a lot more likely to open and read your emails when you're pitching them your stories. So that increases the effectiveness exponentially. So that's going to segue us into Jeremy's PR PSA for today. And that is, public relations is about people. So to get featured in the media, you need to build and nurture real relationships with journalists. Look, the reality is journalists are people just like the rest of us, right? I know that it's kind of easy to just think about them as a contact or a target, somebody that you're pitching to get something out of. But remember that they're real people and they have needs as well. So if you know that their entire business model is based on exposure, based on the number of people that read their content or watch their TV segments, then that gives you a much clearer path to get featured in the media, because you're giving them what they need, which benefits them. Then as a result of that, provided that you are a legitimate expert, you do have real insight to share, you're exponentially more likely to get featured in the media. And all of this follows kind of like a snowball path, right? The more of this that you do, the more results that you create. And then the more results you create, the more recognizable you are, the more likely that journalists are to feature you, right? If you pitch them, let's say it's somebody you've never pitched before, and you pitch them and everything lands and they love it, they go look you up online. If they find a whole bunch of other media features, you're a lot more likely to get featured. If they see your name popping up in other journalists that they know's feed, right, they're a lot more likely to feature you. So take these things that we talked about, put them in practice, execute consistently, and I promise you that you're going to get a lot more impact from your pitches. So you're going to get featured a lot more often in the media. All right, guys, that's going to be a wrap for today. I hope you guys found this valuable. And if you did, I would love it if you'd drop us some comments on social media. If you're not already subscribed to us on YouTube, please do that and go ahead and hit the little alerts button so you get notified when we publish something new. And I will see you all on the next episode. Thanks, everyone.